This guy is clearing a dungeon using his rare X-rank summons, far better than even the S-rank summons everyone dreams about. And now he's up against the boss, a massive slime. But honestly, it's not even a challenge. With the fairy boosting him, his gorilla summon basically turns into the Hulk and smashes the slime with a single punch. Then it just keeps going, an unstoppable barrage until there's nothing left. Meanwhile, Jinwoo, he's just chilling in the back, barely lifting a finger. In the end, he clears the entire dungeon in 5.5 minutes. At first, he thinks that's kinda slow, but then a notification pops up. He's just broken the all-time record for South Korea, and he wasn't even trying. The news spreads instantly, shocking everyone at the Summoners Association. Some complete nobody just set a new record out of nowhere. So who is this guy? Well, Jinwoo used to be the #1 ranker in a summoning game, and the moment he cleared it, the game became reality. Monsters started flooding the streets, and while everyone else panicked, Jinwoo was the only one who knew what was going on. But yeah, his luck was trash. Right at that moment, Truck-kun did what Truck-kun always does, hit him and put him into a coma for 3 years. When he finally wakes up, everything's changed. Even his parents now have summons, and the news is full of people clearing dungeons like it's normal. And then, a system notification appears, asking him if he's ready to start the tutorial. Soon after waking up from his 3-year-long coma, my guy resumed his life at home with a different twist. He absorbed everything he possibly could about the new world, which had merged with the video game. For instance, duels and raids were everywhere now, dungeons had to be traversed, and finally the Tower of Trials was now a real thing. The whole concept of the digital game immersed and materialized into reality. 3 years after this strange merging phenomenon, humanity adapted and coexisted with the evolved world. Regardless, our boy is on some next level of confidence because dude knows none of them will ever touch his level. Ready to rumble? He pops up the inventory screen to commence the tutorial, engaging in his first trial. Moments later, Jinwoo arrives in a completely isolated location, where he is free to execute the tutorial. By the way, the reward is just 2 measly summoning scrolls, but even they feel special to our boy because they're finally real. My guy is begging to get something decent out of them, because it would be hilarious if someone cracked at the game like Jinwoo ended up with a shitty summon. The gacha gods didn't have a good time with this game, because Battle of Summons was notorious for its shitty drop rates. A low-ranking scroll only gave you at best a D rank, but most of the reward was netted as F rank. Higher-level scrolls have higher rankings up to S, but for this one, little D is the best Jinwoo has to gain, and I definitely don't mean his package. Jinwoo is begging for a chance to get something good. He's happy to settle for an E rank if it comes down to that too. Bro just wants something workable, and with those hopes, our boy rips apart the summoning scroll, activating the scroll's effects. From his reaction, it seems that Jinwoo is really eager, because he can't wait to see what a proper manifestation or a summon looks like in person. At once, blue lightning zaps down with ferocity, startling the ever-living shit out of him. Jinwoo watches with complete shock, the torn scroll torn on the ground. The system calls out to our boy and shockingly confirms his summoning of an X-rank wind fairy, in other words, the average lowly. Flabbergasted to have summoned an X-rank, Jinwoo questions if this is even supposed to happen in the first place. The wind fairy looks at him with surprise, before astonishing herself with her own summoning. She's thrilled and swooned over the fact that someone actually managed to summon her after a very long time. Jinwoo appears confused, because summons aren't supposed to talk back. But then it clicks in his head, and he decides to ask her if she is Ramba by any chance. The question bugs her, and she quickly declines by stating that she's just a wind fairy. The flying midget slowly remembers that the only person who ever called her that is Jinwoo God. And right then, the girl gets an enlightenment. Her face puffs up in fluster at the realization that it really is her beloved Jinwoo God. With her tear-filled eyes, she hugs his face, whining over how much she missed him. While hugging the heck out of his face, our boy is starting to realize why the X-rank got summoned in the first place. You see, in the game, once you exploit the hidden mechanics of the Wind Fairy, it's possible to evolve her into a proper support summon with attack speed buffs. They had already spent so much time together in his beginner days, to the point he nicknamed her Ramba. At the same time, bro still can't believe that the bug exists in the current version of the game, because it was already patched in year 1 of Battle of Summons. Jinwoo checks the official statement, recalling how the exploit was patched. He even remembers his reaction because they had deleted her despite his investments on the Wind Fairy. Checking her data, our boy learns that the Wind Fairy actually has some kind of quarantine status, something he doesn't really understand either. The Wind Fairy weeps her heart out, sharing how she was trapped in a cage and couldn't escape it ever since her disappearance. She begs him not to leave her again, but our boy shoves her back because he's trying to piece together a theory, a game theory. First, Jinwoo asks what's causing her quarantine status. The question seems to startle her, and even though she tries to remember the cause, she gets a sudden headache out of nowhere, as if she can't recall. The girl puts up her cutesy act, pretending as if some outside force placed some memory-inhibiting seal on her. But our boy is unfazed and straight up tells her to just say what she remembers. Ramba expresses that she can't say a lot, but it's true that she was kept in isolated confinement, and no ordinary player could ever summon her. What's interesting is that Jinwoo senses that there are other summons that were also quarantined. Ramba confirms this, but doesn't know them herself as they were all kept in different areas. She suspects at least 10 entities to be a part of this whole quarantine, which gets Jinwoo's brain churning up a thought. His contemplation leads to a frightening conclusion. During his time in the game, 10 of his summons were reported as bugs and deleted under his care. And if that means all of them ended up with a new classification of X rank, then they could also be summoned. Ramba is just happy that she managed to cross over to him through the summoning scroll, while Jinwoo theorizes that maybe the X summons only respond to his scrolls. This effectively means that Bro is the only dude on the whole planet who can pull X ranks like it's a walk in the park, suspecting that perhaps this is a hidden reward he gained after conquering the 100th floor in his final run. Popping open another scroll to confirm his theory, he checks to see if every drop means a guaranteed X rank. The next summon manifests as Hairy Gorilla, and all I'm wondering is how they put the average Redditor in this game. Unfortunately, Bro's theory cooked his ass because this thing is a shitty F rank, which means the X rank thing is still based on RNG Jesus. Still, Jinwoo's strategy is the same as before. He simply has to farm the crap out of summoning scrolls to get more X ranks to his name. Because if he can just reclaim all 10 of them, my guy is going to get even more overpowered than when he was in his prime. Addressing Ramba, Jinwoo instructs her to firstly stop calling her Jinugod because that's lame, but the more critical reason is because his name is well known throughout the world, and it's going to bring him unwanted attention. Currently he's lacking a lot of information, and he's not secure enough to handle that, because the moment someone catches him pulling X ranks, everyone is going to start targeting his ass like it's a bounty on his head. Suddenly Jinwoo is startled by a rumbling sensation, and not the Attack on Titan kind. Both his monsters are freaking out, while the system prepares to advance him to the next stage. His first task appears in the form of a baby dungeon, a basic cutie patootie level trial to get him running. Jinwoo is a little worked up about this. Our boy may have cleared 1,000 dungeons in the game like an unemployed loser, but the real world is different. It's a completely different story. Composing himself, Jinwoo admits feeling terrified, but he also knows that he won't have to fight directly, and that it's just a tiny tutorial. With that reassurance, he steps up to challenge the dungeon, while the system instructs him to quickly advance towards the entrance. Arriving inside the dungeon, Jinwoo is a little taken aback. The environment is a little eerier than he expected, while the dungeon confirms his entrance, which means it's about to start. Guiding him as per the tutorial, the system states that dungeon fights consist of team summons, with a maximum of 5 on each team. Since he has 2 summons, Wind Fairy and Hairy Gorilla, still not used to that name by the way, the system urges him to put them in his slots. Jinwoo reflects that the best strategy to clear a dungeon is to be armed with 5 summons every time. Arriving with 2 seems dangerous, but it's not impossible to clear a dungeon even then. After all, our boy has already had the experience of unequal fights thousands of times. Since he knows the ins and outs of the walkthrough, Jinwoo presses yes and assigns his summons to his slots. Both monsters are assigned, and now it's time to see the monsters on the opposing end, the ones he'll be facing. A creature's growl instantly causes our boy unease. The opponent is actually a gray wolf, and the task is to simply beat the creature to escape. First, Jinwoo assesses the monster's F-class. Next, a shield is immediately cast around him, protecting the player in honeycomb structure. This actually happened the same way in the virtual game too, but in the real world, the stakes are lopsided. Here's the scary bottom line. Getting attacked after his shield goes down means instantaneous death. No redos or respawns. Bro's gonna be sent straight to the Shadow Realm. The ugly wolf aura farming in front of him while being an F rank isn't making things easier. First, Jinwoo sends the hairy boy over here like a rocket, but the dumbass animal doesn't even attack and awkwardly starts roaring. Bro's so slowly that even the gray wolf has to wait for the attack. Out of embarrassment, this man orders the fairy to chime in and do her thing. Ramba is known for a skill called Wind Pressure, which boosts a summon's attacking speed. This support buff is now applied on Super Saiyan Blue Gorilla, allowing him to do some crazy stuff. The thing lunges forth with more ferocity. Jinwoo is pleased with the effects. As for the gray wolf, the wheel that thing charges to take the fight head on. What's concerning our boy is the sheer size of this wolf, because it's not supposed to be this huge. At this point, Jinwoo is genuinely unsure if his gay gorilla is going to win or not, because according to his experience, a variable could occur because it's the real world this time. The clash of Midget Kong and Midzilla is moments apart, until the first hit connects with the gray wolf biting down the gorilla's flesh. It takes the beast down in an instant, spiking Jinwoo's cortisol. Our boy roars at the stupid fairy to do something, but she is already doing her best. The gorilla grabs this buff again, and utilizes it to rocket a punch straight to the wolf's throat, knocking it several feet apart. One last time, the Wind Fairy expends energy to boost the gorilla's powers, truly out here making plays like Michael Jordan. The gorilla experiences a peak and descends with a thrashing punch, obliterating the wolf's belly. Next, he starts hammering down dozens of punches to make sure it stays down. The punching ends with Jinwoo and the fairy looking concerned as hell, but luckily, Gorilla Boy has successfully killed the threat. It even roars in excitement while celebrating. our boy experiences relief for surviving the first dungeon and is rewarded with 2 strength runes. In the next scene, we arrive in the city, where Jinwoo's younger sister Ah-jin is making a bank with 200,000 won. 3 whole years ago, she managed to crop up a new profession, a rune farming player. In other words, she visits low-level dungeons and sells runes like a merchant to players in need of them. She had to take on this role right after difficult times struck down her family after Jinwoo's disappearance. This is like reverse solo leveling at this point, but luckily the girl managed to obtain a C-class summon with a 1% drop rate at some point. Thanks to the Shadow Elf, she can easily make money with rune farming safely. Ah-jin checks her phone to see her brother calling out of nowhere. She asks if he's discharged already, while he points out straight to her face that she's a rune peddler. The remark pisses her off, because it diminishes her profession, and she orders him to call him a farming player. Our boy decides to play by his little sister's rules, and asks about the location of the synthesis center. Ah-jin shares that it's located in the player zone as expected. Now, because the Tower of Trials formed inside the real world, people had to conduct special business related to the game. That's how the player zone came to be. The same place harbors synthesis and enhancement centers too, everything close to the tower for a player's convenience. In the next scene, we see Ah-jin sharing a table across from her brother. She reveals that Jamsil and Hyundai Tower from the real world basically became the Towers of Trials. So far, Korea has only those 2, but the player zone he's looking for is also located around them. This makes Jinwoo understand that it's efficient to have player facilities near the tower, but more importantly, his little sister is curious what kind of rank he got. Keeping it simple, he tells her that he got an E and F summon, which excites her since even E ranks have a 5% rate. Our boy keeps it nonchalant, not revealing to her that he actually won the lottery with the ranking. Regardless, he wants her help because he desires adapting to the system fast. In return, he promises her pocket money, despite the fact that Ah-jin admits making way more than him. Teasing her, our boy reminds Ah-jin that he could always become the world's greatest player in a twist of fate. Ah-jin doesn't really believe in her brother's delusional dreams, because in her view, people like Rachel or Genos are like gods who can never be reached, geniuses of a different dimension. But our boy playfully takes it as a challenge, before asking his sister to just show him the way, so he can observe with his own eyes what the zone looks like. Walking on their way to the zone, Ah-jin learns that he pulled a wind fairy summon, but it's a monster she hasn't heard of. The girl wants him to show it to her, but bro declines on her face, offending her because they're supposed to be siblings. Jinwoo asks her to show him her summon first, and Ah-jin willingly goes on to cast it, hoping for him not to be surprised when he sees it. To be honest, it intrigues him to see what kind of summon could make her this confident. The answer is a C-rank Shadow Elf, which looks a lot like Raven from Teen Titans. Bro's face is instantly turned to stone. It's not even a special summon, while Ah-jin is pissed off that her brother is judging her like that. She thinks these types of summons are like nobles among the players, but deep down our boy thinks that's bullshit because C-rank is literally considered fodder in his view. They're the ones he wouldn't even take to any dungeon. Jinwoo politely greets the elf, questioning if it can speak Korean or say hello. But both the monster and Ah-jin are looking at her weird. The sister is confused as fudge to see her brother's crazy behavior, but you see he's actually trying to test if all monsters can speak or not, and it seems that this one can't. Even Ah-jin points out that summons aren't supposed to speak, giving him another reality check, because Ramba's whining midget fairy ass graduated from the University of Yapology. Anyway, dude's confused, while she's annoyed that he thinks summons can talk. In a way, Ah-jin is correct. Jinwoo just had this overblown assumption that all summons could talk. Now it's his turn, but he ghosts her in real time and refuses to show his summon. Ah-jin feels devastated because the girl got treated like how tech support scammers treat you. But Jinwoo doesn't want to garner any attention right now, especially with Ramba talking. She calls him a scumbag and rushes after him. Later, our boy arrives in the player zone. It's a completely different cyberverse. The Jamsil world looks far different ever since the arrival of the towers, since the corporations tore the whole place down. The answer is simple. Nobody would want to have an amusement park next to a tower of doom and gloom. At the same time, Jinwoo thinks that idea is so cool and thrilling. Ah-jin reminds her idiot brother that dungeons make this area dangerous, so no one would come here to have fun. While it's true that they're scary, Jinwoo internalizes that it's definitely a fun experience for him to see things in reality that he only saw in the game. It genuinely excites him, and he quickly locates the exchange zone, where players can trade stuff like scrolls and runes. It gives him a lot of memories from his time in the game, because bro would be buying stuff with his whale-rich friend Baicheon. Ah-jin also shows him to go to the information desk anytime he needs more information beyond the basics. She points out that he's a beginner, so it's best to have an academy run around the player HQ. Jinwoo assures her that he's fine, because deep down, he has everything he needs. All he cares about is growing on his own while staying in this zone, but Ah-jin is still worried for her brother. He simply tells her to head back because he's gonna stick around for a bit, before coming back home. The little sister is weirded out by his recent behavior ever since he was discharged. almost like his body has been possessed or something. At the same time, she thinks that her brother is just trying to work hard in his own way, so she has to keep an eye on him at most. They wave each other goodbye, and in the next scene, Jinwoo is in an isolated spot where he thinks no one will find him. Right away, he manifests Ramba, with the wind fairy excitedly greeting him loudly. He shuts her loud mouth up, urging her to be quiet. The fairy fails to understand what's going on, while he gives her one simple instruction to never open her mouth in the outside world. Jinwoo reasons that he can't allow people to notice their conversations, so she's only allowed to speak in dungeons from now on. With that settled, our boy thinks about his next goal, which is to gain some capital so he can raid dungeons. Checking his balance, my guy finds that he's broke as hell like your average gamer in real life. Jinwoo succumbs to the rock-bottom reality. This is literally all the money he has to his name, a measly 12,000 won, and it kills him to work part-time jobs again. Normally, people would suggest he ask his parents, but he doesn't want to do that as his mother works incredibly hard with 3 different jobs just to keep things afloat. Asking them for a loan feels like a stomping on their efforts, making him an animal. The son feels useless for this situation, and accepts the reality of starting things from scratch. You see, the very reason Jinugod as a player was unreachable to all others is because of the fact that he didn't spend any real money on the game. In other words, bro was completely free to play and did not invest a single dime, and somehow managed to be number 1 at the game. And that, folks, is how you know this can only happen in a manhwa story. Anyway, that kind of attitude gives him some level of optimism to climb up from 0 again, but then bro's eyeballs pop the hell out when he sees a 500,000 point transfer. He hassles to check the source of the amount, questioning how the hell he's getting all this money. It's actually Jinwoo's caring mom, who wanted to send him a proper allowance, knowing that he'd never ask for this stuff up front. Just this gesture alone causes him to feel flustered. Remember guys, this is the same mother who nursed him for 3 whole years while he was gone, enduring so much struggle. Talk about being the greatest freaking mom ever. Like this video to pay her your respects. Jinwoo rubs his tears, thanking the angel that she is, and vows a newfound confidence to succeed no matter what, just so that he could make his family proud. 3 years may have set him back, but he is willing to prioritize each second to climb ahead, to become the very best, to gather every resource in his arsenal for the dungeon raids. And that's how Jinwoo ends up purchasing 3 more scrolls. The first goal is to build a team. Our boy gains a slime mass monster, then a horned butterfly. Both of them are F ranks. But his luck runs great on the 3rd pull, as he extracts an E rank poison lizard. This is lucky as it is. Jinwoo believes he's already beaten the odds twice in 5 attempts so far. Poison Lizard also has decent abilities too, but unfortunately he really hates slime mass and has to forcibly use it for the time being. I mean, I get it. The sludge has a face only a mother could love. With the Pokemon team built, Ash Ketchum now intends to raid dungeons and grow them further beyond. The growth system of the game relies on farming, hunting, and opening scrolls. Jinwoo is happy to grind for those elements, because if he can just somehow collect all of his X-rank summons, he'll be able to obliterate each and every single obstacle that stands in his way. His main plan? To acquire and recollect the remaining X ranks. With initial preparations finished, it's time for the good stuff. Jinwoo searches on Google Chrome for a dungeon's location. The game had it simpler because he just had to tap on a spot, but it really makes him curious about what the real system is like. It actually surprises him, to the point this man startles himself and others. That's because he just learned that simply having a summoned creature isn't just enough to enter a dungeon. Gates are typically appearing all over the country regardless of location. A difficulty is measured for ranking through energy emissions. But no matter how easy the dungeon is, people aren't just allowed to enter if they're not registered officially. Our boy is sulking because bro's got the shittiest luck on the planet. The fact that he awakened after this law was made crushes him. His little midget fairy is the only happiness in his life because she supports him. Happier now, Jinwoo pets her on the head, before suddenly receiving a call from his sister. Ajin asks when he's going to be coming back home for dinner, but our boy assures that he'll eat on his own. He does ask his dumbass sister about the player registration part, which she conveniently forgot to mention. Jinwoo knows that this brat refused to mention it, but that's not the case because the regulation is recent. People kept dying in dungeons, so the government had to introduce a policy, and in fact, there were so many deaths that it became chaotic. That's why proper staff agents hover around each gate to verify, introducing new issues. Jinwoo only realizes how tedious and slow this process is, but it makes him wonder if it's strategically designed to control the players. After all, if every single person becomes a player in greed of attaining wealth, the social system will collapse on its head. Aside from that, there's also something called rankings. Apparently, the system ranking has a list of players based on local and international rankings, and Korea is so ass that it doesn't even appear on the global rankings. Ajin is sad because if Jinugod was here, they'd be higher, not knowing it's her own damn brother who's the legendary player. The call ends with our boy deciding to rest for the day. The next day at home, food's hot and ready. Jinwoo is already hastening to leave at 6 in the morning. His mother urges him to catch a rice ball before leaving, but he thinks it's fine. He quickly wraps up his shoes and apologizes to his parents for only showing him his worst side, even thanking them earnestly for all their efforts. The parents are shell-shocked hearing those words. Papa is flustered while Mama is worried. The good thing is that the government has ramped up safety protocols. Jinwoo checks on his phone and learns that countless deaths happened because of the player's recklessness. He too can't say a thing because bro had been a gaming addict for the past 10 years. It sounds shitty to admit it too. Standing in front of the reception, he hands in the application form and asks how many people end up receiving the qualification. Apparently there's this final test to achieve the title, further annoying Jinwoo because there's 1,000 people just waiting behind him. Regardless, he thinks that if he can't pass this measly test, then what's the point in his title as one of the 5 emperors of the heavens? In the next scene, we find ourselves at a different location. Park Chang-sok is affiliated with HQ and seems disappointed with the talent for the year. Suddenly, the building collapses and takes them by storm. A man has invaded the building using his giant orc summon. He's here for revenge against Chang-sok because he killed his brothers. Meanwhile, this guy thinks the dude is a psychopath and unleashes his own badass summons, mostly consisting of fire and wood-based monsters. The main HQ is being attacked, and while everyone else is panicking, our boy is calmly chilling with his pods, until he turns around and realizes a whole new mess has been made. Jinwoo has no idea what the heck is going on other than the fact that he's caught up in it. The bystanders are just afraid for their lives, placing their fate in Chang-sok's hands. Jinwoo senses some kind of gang conflict because his dude in a dripped-out suit seems to have a vendetta. What's boggling him is how even the thugs of the real world have become advanced with their summons. Chang-sok roars for an emergency and asks everyone to bring out summons to protect themselves with shields. Jinwoo does the same for his shield, while our favorite fairy takes a second to assess the situation before nearly opening her mouth. Our boy shuts her up, reminding her not to speak in front of people. Back to this sharp-looking gangster, he wants to take down Chang-sok and his sense of justice. The first monster he throws is the orc, while our boy is hiding from a safe spot knowing that he'll complicate things by getting involved. His goal is to observe for now, and shortly after, a heated battle takes place with Chang-sok's fiery butterfly unleashing tiny meteors and blasting at the orc. However, this thing is a tank and survives all of those hits, giving the thug a bit of cockiness. Chang-sok's cornered, while our boy gets up to realize that this man is absolute dogshit. It's so bad that even the other spectators can see Chang-sok as being pushed back. This forces Jinwoo into a corner because now he has to make a decision. If he does help and involve himself, he's the one who'll have to deal with these guys. The orc strikes down its axe on one of Chang-sok's summons, forcing Jinwoo to finally make a decision. He's starting to realize that his quiet life is going to end before it can even start, so he calmly goes up to Chang-sok, who worriedly tells him to stay back. Jinwoo, however, criticizes him for missing the timing of one of his creature's skills. He then instructs how the buffers around the blood orc have an advanced fire resistance buff, meaning a specific timing is needed, or else no fire attacks will work. Chang-sok personally observes that the orc's body also glistens, hinting the activation of the skill. With this knowledge, this time Chang-sok switches up the play. First, he instructs Flame Turtle over here to prepare another fire spell. The creature shoots it at max speeds, lasering down its target. Chang-sok excitedly shouts in celebration. His attack finally managed to become effective, while his opponent is stunned how this man managed to uncover the weakness. Next, the wood monster ends up destroying the other support summons this guy has too, practically leaving him wide open. Finally, Flame Turtle and the Flame Butterfly each prepare epic fire attacks and shoot them down to annihilate the orc even more. By the end, all of this guy's summons disappear on him, and his shield is shattered too. Now that he's on the back foot, he wants a second chance and hands out a surrender, even preparing for the consequences of being wrong. However, what he notices is that the vine creature quickly grabs him, tangling him up. Chang-sok doesn't want to listen to a word of his pleading. Then there's the fact that any and all gang members are to be executed right on the spot. Weeping his eyes out, refusing to accept death, the criminal faces the consequences of his actions, getting justice served to his face. Chang-sok snaps his fingers, and we get this brutal massacre because the guy's body is snapped into paste. At last, the fight is over. The people cheer for Chang-sok's epic victory, calling him amazing and whatnot. While they're shouting in celebration, our boy is horrified. You see, it's shocking that these guys are unfazed that a man was slaughtered before their eyes just now, even if he happened to be a criminal. This confirms to Jinwoo that the very world he knew changed right before him. It's going to be tougher from now on to survive without having a strong resolve backing him up. Chang-sok approaches the boy, offering his utmost gratitude because the kid helped him earlier. He managed to execute the terrorist because of Jinwoo's contributions, so Chang-sok is thrilled to even reward the kid for it. Using this as his golden ticket, our boy reveals that he hasn't registered in the headquarters yet. The man is literally stunned with this info, because this is the same kid who just gave him excellent advice while being a complete beginner. Chang-sok requests for his ID card, assuring him that it's all they need for a verification. Jinwoo hands him the card, while he promises him that a reward will be promised after a quick background check. Happy to accept that gift, our boy leaves, while Chang-sok takes notice of him and forwards some data to his friend on a call. He actually wants someone to properly investigate Jinwoo's background. In the next scene, our boy hands a delicious pastry to the fairy for being quiet. She eats with delight, and even though Jinwoo understands that players like to argue against their summons, he finds it really convenient that he can satisfy her with a simple meal like this. Still, things are worrying him. Even though he didn't want to involve himself, everyone in that building would have just died if he hadn't acted. The whole world is different. Jinwoo can't get the hang of it, but he has to climb higher with hunting. Summoning scrolls are critical to him for the next beast, with his top priorities being the drill instructor and explosion dragon mage. The good thing is that he can get both of them from low-ranking scrolls. That aside, Jinwoo thinks it's time for him to get his move going. Chang-sok's report later comes out, and it stuns the crap out of him that this new kid actually remained hospitalized for 3 years too. That's why he's been an unregistered player. 3 years ago is when the world turned upside down, so it makes sense. However, the dude can't fathom how this kid instantly decided to aim for registration right after his discharge. Looking at his information sheet, Chang-sok questions if what he's looking at is real. He tries to compose himself and maintain his calm, so he calls the examiner for the test and actually replaces himself with the position, probably because bro wants to oversee Jinwoo's side. It still boggles him how the guy could have so much adaptability for this game. Baek Jinwoo has become a miracle-making talent in front of his eyes, exciting Chang-sok. The scene cuts to a waiting area. Our boy has arrived, but with a disappointed look on his face. It's just that there's a ton of people here, and he's an introvert pro max. All of them are here for training, and in order to get past all of these competitors, it's going to take a while to become a player. Still, it's no big deal for our boy, who is chilling on the seat, knowing he's the boss. With everyone gathered, the examiner pops up to take the test. But unexpectedly, it's actually Park Chang-sok himself in the flesh. The first test is some kind of pre-written exam training, and later on, when it's our boy's turn to talk to Chang-sok, he comments how he didn't expect the guy to pop up. The older man calls it fate and asks on the training update, but Jinwoo remembers it a bit differently. You see, a while ago while he was giving them a lecture, our boy was getting bored alongside his fairy. It bothered Jinwoo that they were teaching one of his combinations from the game, so he acted like the lecture was just alright. Aside from that, Chang-sok emphasizes that he called the boy separately because of the award application thing. Before that, he wants to ask the newbie something important. The question is odd and funny, inquiring if Jinwoo is a game of some kind. Receiving that question, our boy is stunned. Apparently, gamers have become a formal term. They're the people who played Battle of Summoners in the past and have knowledge of it. 70% of the rankers in this country are gamers too, but of course it's common for Chang-sok to think of him as such, because Jinwoo talked about buffs without being a player. He ends up confirming the guess, enlightening Chang-sok's face. He wants to know about the guy's experience, but Jinwoo honestly doesn't want to say 10 whole years to reveal his identity. To keep things simple, bro says 1 year, but that alone is such a huge duration that this man is swooning head over heels for him on the table. Jinwoo doesn't know what's going on, while Chang-sok is out here with puppy eyes over the fact that he gamed for a full year. The thing is, most rankers couldn't even play the game for half a year, so this is impressive in Chang-sok's eyes. On the next subject, he expresses that they've readied 2 rewards. Jinwoo is given a choice to pick whichever he wants. The first reward allows him the ability to instantly register as a player, basically an immediate employment pass. It also extends to an offer to hire him at the headquarters, but our boy doesn't seem amused by much. So then comes a second offer. Chang-sok offers him a whopping reward of 5 million won, but honestly the answer seems pretty damn obvious in this case. Right now, Chang-sok is hoping that the kid picks the first choice since it is objectively better, but hilariously, Jinwoo shatters all of his expectations by picking the second option of the money. The dude is stunned that he's turning down a hiring position as well as the registration process, but Jinwoo seems just fine, believing that he can easily register on his own, and that he doesn't share an intention of joining HQ. After all, summons are his priority. In the next scene, we find him at the playzone area. One staff agent identifies him as Jinwoo. The lady is kind and explains that the practical exam requires clearing a dungeon, or specifically in his case, the Tuesday dungeon. The test is also going to be a time attack format, meaning a quick clearance is a greater grade. While this is happening, Chang-sok observes from afar, still stunned from the instant refusal. More or less, what he discovered on his exam sheet astounded him even more. Jinwoo wrote so much about runes and summons that he even impressed the examiner checking it. They were literally swooning over this guy's talent, to the point they began believing in the idea that he'll become a ranker in no time. Chang-sok saw those professors act flustered like never before, so this just confirms how special the kid is. With the explanations and boring talk set aside, Jinwoo is finally allowed to enter the gate. He curiously steps up for the exam, and on the other side, emerges with a shield cast over his life. This dungeon is specially curated with toxic slime monsters. The goal is to defeat them and escape the dungeon fast. Activating Ramba's ability first most, Jinwoo addresses the Wind Fairy to buff his summons. Hairy Gorilla gets his attack speed buffs, while our boy reflects on the intricate design of the Tuesday dungeon, which is like a maze. Defeating slimes leads you to an encounter with the boss, but it's also where most players get lost and lose the test. However, these slimes are so slow that the best strategy is to run as fast as you can to directly approach the boss. Jinwoo and his summons find their way to the shortcut since it's a path he's familiar with, but here comes the plot twist, as several red screens hover around him, signifying the appearance of a boss monster. Our boy didn't expect to encounter this fat ugly blob in real life like this. The giant slime glares down at him all the same. The attack begins with Jinwoo throwing Gorilla Boy at the giant slime. This thing jumps up top for a crushing descent and slams the slime to pieces with a single damn hit. It's insane because Ramba's buffs are insane. The gorilla reduces the slime's body to paste with dozens of punches flying about, making even F-tier monsters seem powerful. It already excites Jinwoo how powerful his other monsters are going to become. And well, within moments, the boss monster is killed. The dungeon is also branded a clear in 5 minutes. Still pretty slow for our boy who is used to clearing stuff in under a minute in the game. Shockingly, even this performance breaks the Korean record, unlocking an achievement in the process. Jinwoo is stunned, but he actually receives 3 advanced summoning scrolls and 2 abrasives. What boggles him is how this shitty record is supposed to be Korea's best right now. By the way, the player HQ is currently losing its mind over the broken record, noticing a 5-minute record completion. At first they think it's Jianho, but then they realize it's a new kid called Jinwoo, someone who doesn't even pop up as a ranker. Yes, a non-ranker broke the record, the #1 record at that. A meeting is formally held shortly after to discuss the achievement of this player. These guys are admittedly impressed, but Changsok is fangirling the most, as he can tell the kid is a generational talent. In other words, he wants to secure him no matter what, or at least stop him from going to another country for this country's own survival. Changsok recommends they register him immediately as a player, because time attacks are actually divided into national and global lists. Giano had the record of 6 minutes. Rachel, on the other hand, has a global record of 2.5 minutes to her name. Jinwoo enters the frame and mogged the Korean record from his first attempt. That's why he thinks a player match is unneeded for a talent like that, as someone like him deserves special treatment. Shifting perspective back to our boy, he's a bit bummed out with the trashy record he set. Changsok roars his name and comes up to him like a swooned little girl. First, he commends his amazing record break, then he asks how he managed to do it. Jinwoo keeps it simple and doesn't really explain anything and thinks the compliments are overboard. At once, the man hands him his player license card. Jinwoo is baffled that he managed to get it at last without needing to prove anything. Aside from that, Changsok is still curious to know how he managed to overtake the record. Our boy doesn't know what to say, because if he does reveal the secret, Korea would rise in rankings. But the issue is what will become after. He'll get tons of attention and be wealthy, but in the worst case scenario, bro's gonna be locked up and targeted for information. Since the second case is rough, he decides to keep the information to himself by calling out Changsok for being rude in his approach. The man takes this rejection strongly and understands that the strategy of a gamer is special to him. At the same time, he also points out that Korea desperately requires miracle-making talent like Jinwoo. From his response, our boy senses that this dude is actually a pretty chill guy. What's more is that he fulfilled all his promises, and he's fast on following instructions. That makes our boy wonder if he should use his own country to leverage an advantage. After all, if he could just time things correctly, he'll manage to grow much faster than he would on his own. Addressing the assemblyman, he asks for them to move to some quiet place. So in the next scene, we get Changsok begging him for help, expressing just how much the headquarters requires the help of such a player. After all, they know that he's been out in a coma for 3 years now. Changsok apologizes for the background check when Jinwoo raises the question. It's just that he had to know because gang members often have a similar pattern of being unregistered and skilled. At the same time, our boy is bummed out because he believes there's no point for them to investigate him anymore. Changsok confirms this. But he's also observing an interesting behavioral notice. People usually get intimidated when it comes to talking about nations, but the guy in front of him is chill. It's as if Jinwoo is aware of the kind of talent he brings to the table. Sipping his coffee, our boy admits that he's contemplated plenty, but he wants to know what he gains from the country. Changsok slams that he'll offer full cooperation, which is a confusing answer. Apparently, the man shares that he has a high and relevant position at the headquarters. Assemblymen are always elected by a public vote, which means better results could make him rise higher. In other words, bro is a politician who wants more chips to his name. The assemblyman begs him to help him, so then he can in turn provide with all the possible support he can. This is a little underwhelming proposal to Jinwoo, who can't picture the clear rewards he'll get from these things. Regardless, he decides to carry on with the request, but with the condition of a single month as per his duration. In other words, since Jinwoo is a fresh player, he wants to focus on growing for the meantime, requesting support when he desires. and if he can see that this proposal benefits him, then he'll support them, and if not, then he'll just return the rewards. Long story short, Chung-sok is hearing that Jinwoo is entertaining a trial of a month to test the waters. Though it's a bold request, it's the best shot he has to get him on his side. So they shake hands on it, with the assemblyman believing he'll get more from Jinwoo from this deal. To start things off, Jinwoo wants maximum assurance that the record he broke doesn't reach the rest of the country, because he's worried about his safety. Chang-sok doesn't get his concerns because the headquarters can alleviate that safety, but then he realizes that HQ won't be able to help someone as talented as this guy, especially when they struggled against measly gang members. In other words, Chang-sok understands that Jinwoo is aware of the fragility of the HQ, so he accepts those terms. At the same time, it's impossible to stop the total spread overall. Jinwoo is okay with that, and so they decide to part ways with the intention of meeting later. Our boy is just happy, and intends to check the rewards he got. Let's start off with his advanced summoning scrolls, which is what he's interested in the most. Our boy understands that a record-breaking achievement nets players a great reward, and though he wants to open them right away, gambling isn't fun. Instead, selling them seems more attractive. However, he suddenly gets an idea. The player web is a place where the database of all the players is stored, so that item transactions can be listed. The assemblyman explained all this while installing the app, so our boy quickly hops on the app and checks the pricing list. But when he lays his eyes on the screen, bro is literally shivering in shock. The prize money for a high-grade scroll is 3 million won each, a massive amount. In other words, bro nearly earned 10 million won just by setting a record in that crappy little dungeon. With the way things are going, bro is starting to realize that his rich life Elon Musk fuck you money dream is going to be raining down on his family very soon. Jinwoo plans on selling the high-grade scrolls and recycle the money into low-grade scrolls instead, only caring about 2 main summons for now. After listing the 3 scrolls, our boy checks on the list of low-level scrolls and doesn't understand why these cost 5,000 won each even though they're easy to farm. Then there's the fact that there's an endless list of sellers with no one pulling a low price. My guy is cooked, so he decides to call his special little sister for another help. After a long-winded explanation, Ahjin shares that the HQ buys the scrolls. Apparently it's to support the rankers for some reason. Their goal is to purchase in bulk, and then the listing for the lowest scroll is 5,000. People directly sell it to the HQ without a price negotiation, but Ahjin also intriguingly states that this system might change soon. After all, it's a policy made from the early era, so the HQ doesn't really need such scrolls anymore. But that's actually a good thing for our boy, who hangs up the call and realizes that there's an oversupply of low-level scrolls. All he needs to do next is have another meeting with Chang-sok, which he does the following day. The assemblyman is thrilled to meet him, questioning if our boy needs something. Jinwoo expresses his desire to obtain low-level scrolls, a request that stuns him because normally people expect high grades. Jinwoo requests for as many scrolls as he could possibly obtain, and literally 50,000 of them pop up nearly every day at the HQ, which means Chang-sok can easily lend them. At the same time, he fears that the player might be trying to resell them for money. Except, our boy declines, assuring that there's no point when the scrolls are already overflowing in the market. Chang-sok is impressed and wonders what he's planning, internalizing how this gamer is far different from the others, especially since he's going for a unique strategy here. The assemblyman is okay with that, but he's got one condition for it. All he cares about is receiving one simple piece of information, one that helps the headquarters. Because he's in an important position, if he gets caught supporting him behind the scenes, people's trust in him will falter. If Jinwoo can provide some information, then it will be made as part of a business transaction instead. In other words, our boy realizes he's not being handed something for free, which is good since he doesn't want any favors. He agrees to the deal, and explains the existence of shaving seconds off of achievements. Normally, conquering a dungeon at first place nets you 3 high-grade scrolls for completion, but the same reward can be obtained again if another player breaks the old player's record. In other words, players can just reset the record by 1 second each, juicing out the best possible outcome and stacking up the scrolls. What also helps is that the Korean Association benefits as a whole because its players become stronger. Chang-sok shares that they've already used that method actually, but most players haven't received such rewards, so it won't be a problem trying to apply something like this. As for the next part, Jinwoo intends to share hints of a strategy for the Tuesday dungeon he conquered. Dying for something amazing to come out of his mouth, Chang-sok waits like a puppy ready for its meal, because bro thinks this guy is going to reveal a top-secret method. Jinwoo shares that using this method could allow most people to clear the dungeon in under 3 minutes, but before he can do that, our boy wants to make sure the price of the information is worth the investment, so he adds 50 high-grade scrolls on top of the low-grade ones for the deal. Long story short, he's asking for 100 million won's worth of scrolls, which is an insane amount. But it's fair to Jinwoo since this method can be used in both low and high-tier dungeons, amounting to possibly billions on a return. Chang-sok understands this side, and follows that he will transfer 150 million directly if the information is valuable enough, as well as supplying our boy with 10,000 low scrolls each day. The following evening, the assemblyman gathers some of his staff for a little test. They're suspecting that he's got something good ready for them. First, Chang-seok talks about the recent Tuesday dungeon record, and then he casually shares having acquired a technique to bypass it, thanks to his connections from overseas. He also makes it seem like Jinwoo was a test subject who used this technique. That's why everyone was briefed not to say a word about it. As for the reason he called them here, Chang-seok reveals that they're going to be performing a dungeon time attack from here on. The main summon needed for this dungeon is all thanks to the poison lizard monster. This little one shares the size of an adult male and a brawler class, but that's just the basic information, because for the most part it's strong and durable. However, using it is tough because raising this thing is a pain in the ass compared to other grade monsters. Players don't really like it, except they were glossing over one of its most useful skills. The creature's diet is primarily slimes. In other words, for a dungeon like the Tuesday dungeon, an easy clearance is achievable. In the next scene, players excitedly share their own completion rate of 4 minutes, which means the technique was indeed correct. It all happened thanks to one summon's specialty, so the infamous lizard is now hailed and celebrated as almighty. A few more days passed. News of the dungeon-breaking record spread all over the county, with Chang-seok understanding that Jinwoo is far more than what he could consider an average gamer. From now on, the guy wants to orchestrate a proper team to assist our boy, and for the members on that team, he selected 3 proper candidates with different skill sets. In the next scene, our boy stares at his bank balance, all of a sudden feeling rich as hell, questioning how he didn't cash fat checks like this before. But what he cares about the most is the 10,000 summoning scrolls that he can use to farm the crap out of. Chang-seok kept his promise so naturally our boy wanted to do his part of the deal, so he readied Ramba for a little showdown. First, Jinwoo pours down water on the ground, while the little wind fairy chants prayers to every single god she knows of, begging for Jinwoo to pull an amazing summon. With the prayers aside, it's finally time to rip open the scrolls. Jinwoo tears them open for his infinite gacha run, only for a few moments to pass, and he's left with a pile of junk. My guy literally opened 3,600 scrolls and exhausted himself, getting nothing in return for it. It's just impossible so far, but the Wind Fairy thinks it's stupid of him to assume an X-rank monster could arrive out of the blue like that. Jinwoo's expectations were based around the fact that summoning Ramba was so easy, but she assures him that it was literally just some kind of god-tier gacha game bullshit logic luck. In reality, not even 100,000 low-level scrolls might be enough for an X-rank summon. Jinwoo doesn't get it, so she asks if he has any knowledge about the system at all. The summoning system is supposed to equate to 10% of the players, which means 8 billion people equate to 800 million summons. The important part? The summons classified as isolated monsters are only one of a kind. This revelation stuns the dude, but all I'm thinking is how this wasn't an obvious fact to him already. It's strange, but Ramba explains that he's the only person in the whole world capable of pulling X-rank summons, but our boy is just sulking over the fact that 800 million copies of an average summon exists. And he has to pull like 1 X grade from that, which is basically several times harder than winning the lottery. Dude thinks it's game over, but Ramba assures him that certain summons have all collapsed their count, such as the 800 million caterpillars, which won't ever be summoned again. Regardless, our boy thinks it's still too difficult, making him wonder if he should switch to mid-tier scrolls. But that poses another problem of efficiency and scarcity, even money. He's got to work with the current odds. That's the only chance he has, so this man rips another scroll, with Ramba supporting his shenanigans all the way. By the end of that whole run, Bro is on his bed trying to ensure his survival. 2 whole weeks have now passed, and after a whopping 140,000 scrolls later, this man has secured not a single X rank yet. In fact, Jinwoo even moved out just to live near the player zone for easier access to facilities, knowing he shouldn't rely on his parents forever. He gets up again wondering if he should do synthesizing, grabbing Ramba in the process, who is depressantly craving cream bread. Somebody get this fairy her cream bread. At the synthesis center, Jinwoo remarks that this building has changed like the other towers in Korea. The hotel became a synthesis center, but Jinwoo recalls it was originally famous for its buffet. He checks his ticket named 125, while Ramba urges him not to make a mistake. When their name is called, they decide to head inside to use the room. Even now, Jinwoo is hoping for the Wind Fairy to do her best for him. First, he is welcomed by the menu screen outlining his main summons. Jinwoo registers Ramba first, before activating synthesis upon her. What he does is sacrifice a whole bunch of different monsters to fuel the evolution of his Wind Fairy, gassing her up to new levels. With this, her level increases to 21, alongside an increase in her intelligence. Our favorite fairy is now more powerful than ever. Hilariously, Jinwoo isn't impressed because this is all he could get for basically 140,000 scrolls. Ramba is out here squealing over how strong she looks, while he's dying inside because the max level is 100, and at this rate, he'll die before they get it. More days pass, and one guy is crunching numbers on the keyboard, when suddenly Chang-seok comes around to check on Byungjin. So far, the man has created his talent management team, and next he wants to pour his energy into Jinwoo. He asks for an update on our boy's movements, learning that Jinwoo is currently opening scrolls back to back. The same behavior has repeated every single day. Even today, he asked to buy more scrolls with the 150 million he got, though he was interested in purchasing at a lower price. Unfortunately, the Management Bureau is already growing suspicious and raising issues for the supply of these scrolls. Chang-suk still can't comprehend why this dude would invest money in such scrolls. But he knows for a fact that Jinwoo knows something they don't, so he agrees to the ridiculous proposal of selling each one at half the price. The mere suggestion shocks his subordinate, who thinks it will create huge trouble. But the assemblyman is chill, believing that their talent is destined to become an astounding hero of Korea later on, which also means that Chang-suk will front all the credit for investing in him in the first place. That's why he thinks this decision is for the best, though he urges Byungjin to keep quiet about the matter, as it only pertains to him, Jia, and Tai Seop. That takes us back to our boy's misery, who is suffering at the hands of opening another few thousand scrolls. This man is getting depressed by the second, while the Wind Fairy is questioning how long they have to keep up. To alleviate their misery, a baddie steps up to come find him. This is the stunning Yu Jia as part of his new management team. She even tells him that she's here because of the proposal. Jinwoo curiously asks about the discounts, and she takes a rather long time to explain to him that they're going to be offering him a 50% discount. The girl seems so angelic while this man is out here shocked for his life. But more than just that, Jia states there's going to be another 100 million won reward as part of his expense budget. Bro is feeling like a king right now because this is some next level stuff. Jia emphasizes that he must not let this information escape, something Jinwoo is very good at doing anyway. Aside from that, she also teases him that it's for the sake of bettering their relationship, something Jinwoo is also satisfied with. That aside, she decides to leave him to carry on with what he's doing. But right now, Jinwoo is genuinely starting to feel proper support given to him by the assemblyman. He knows he's got to pull up with an X rank fast to repay the guy's efforts. Well, after another whopping thousands of scrolls summoning attempts, he and the little fairy are dying. Every scroll is an F-grade shitty monster. No progress is made. At this point, Jinwoo has come so far that he simply cannot back down or back out anymore. He's praying and begging for a chance to get the explosive dragon, and perhaps after hundreds of thousands of painful scrolls later, the gacha gods take pity on him and crack down a proper summon for him. Ramba and Jinwoo have their jaws dropped open. At last, our boy has summoned the explosive dragon mage that he has been dying to get. The scene is so emotional that bro is literally shedding tears over it, realizing that he no longer has any regrets. But even now, he doesn't want to stop. In fact, he intends to keep going. There's a phenomenon called a hot streak, which means right after you summon a high roll, you can keep going and get even higher ones. With another scroll ripped, another miracle occurs with the summoning of Drill Instructor, the second X grade. Jinwoo cries the happiest tears of his life. It's a feeling probably better than him losing his virginity, because after agonizing weeks of opening relentless scrolls, he found the ideal pair of his dreams. Among the two, the Drill Instructor is the first one to ask where he's arrived. This guy is supposed to be a shitty E-grade summon at first, but his real value lies in the fact that he's a battle-obsessed, training-loving maniac. Bro is Goku. While his own skills are crappy, he governs the training of other creatures, aiding their growth rate by a lot. The same tiny fairy can become majestic Thor. Jinwoo is just delighted to make all his summons stronger and buffed up, but the little one really isn't looking for all that physique. Jinwoo catches up with the training maniac, calling him Hunkyo. The drill instructor immediately realizes that this is Jinagod, bowing before him to pay proper respects. He too thought that they would never meet again. Ramba and Hunkyo are in the same condition as Jinwoo expected. As for the explosive dragon mage, she comes up to confirm if it's really him too. This is the first time our boy has heard her voice. While being a D-grade mage, she has a special ability dealing insane bouts of damage. Hunkyo's pairing with her goes really well, and she even has a multiplier effect where each kill amplifies more of her damage. However, achieving that skill requires the drill instructor's insistence. Jinwoo was the only person who actually used the mage to her best ability. Anyway, she's pretty happy to see him. Even our boy is feeling romantic right now because he missed her overpowered summon. Like Ramba, he orders them not to speak around people, a simple command they understand. Next, it's time for them to go back and rest, because it's been a long day of back-to-back summoning. At home, our boy is cooked to the next level. He's out here having post-nut clarity while his summons are chilling around, having fun and warming up to each other. Hunkyo and Ramba strike conversation. The drill instructor doesn't care about anything other than the fact that all of them are far too weak. This man runs on ambition and motivation. That's why he wants to work them to the bone so they can serve their master properly. First up, he addresses the dragon mage and instructs her to feel her mana so that when she awakens later, he can help unlock predation ability for her. As for Ramba, Bro glares at her with lethal eyes, scaring the crap out of the tiny one. Apparently this guy's goal is to train strength with her, but the poor fairy fears becoming an Olympic bodybuilder because of it. The drill instructor gaslights her to do it for the sake of their master, and assigns her first mission to lift and swing the frying pan. This man also tells her to perform 5,000 reps with it. The fairy reaches her hand out helplessly to seek Jinwoo, but that man is dead as hell right now. He's in a coma. In the next scene, we're back at HQ. Jia comes up with problematic information. Apparently a proper notification, the director has officially stopped supplying scrolls to them. Changsok can't fathom why the busy director would suddenly start caring about something so unimportant. But also, the director also wants to seek a proper report on where the scrolls have been going. This creates a bunch of issues. Jia suspects that Lim Hisu, the other assemblyman, is puppeteering this situation. The same guy is Changsok's nemesis, but Jia thinks it's still a problem because if the management bureau stops supplying scrolls, it will halt Jinwoo's growth. Cornered, Changsok tries to think of options when he suddenly receives a call. Interestingly, it's Jinwoo himself who explains he won't be needing more scrolls. Still, the assemblyman is frustrated with Lim Hisu's tampering and intends to deal with him later. Later on, we arrived at Gwaneksan Mountain's beautiful view. Jinwoo has settled on this destination as his next target for a dungeon. Bro's even got a tracksuit for the style points. In the Battle of Summons game, 4 types of dungeons exist. The first is where exploration happens for farming materials. The second is the Tower of Trials, with varying difficulty levels mostly on the harder side, pushing players to the max limit. The third is the Chaos Dragon Dungeon, a calamitous boss that is supposed to be raided with a party, except this part hasn't yet merged with the real world, so Jinwoo doesn't want to explain it. Now, aside from those 3 specific dungeons, all the others are considered normal ones, and that's what he'll be taking on for the day. Also, there is something called a stage dungeon too, but they're quite rare, and while it's advised to use a party for them, our boy prefers to handle things solo style. He looks up at the normal dungeon gate around the area, reflecting on the fact that dungeons break after it is left unconquered for quite some time. In other words, same solo leveling logic. A staff member requests his license, so our boy quickly hands it over, confirming his verification. Next, he heads right inside to take it on. Jinwoo opens his eyes across the other side, stunned to see the sight of war. Forces are fighting against monsters, which means this is a subjugation-based dungeon with a war breaking out. Inside the subjugation dungeon, the soldiers are barely managing to hold their ground while the orcs continue climbing up at a rapid pace. Back when Jinwoo used to play boss, it all felt like just another game, but now that this is real, he can feel every bit of the intense pressure in the air. What stands in front of him is no longer a simulation, but a full-scale war, where soldiers are shouting desperately for healers to keep them alive. The boy decides to take a chill pill and quickly brings out his summons to deal with the orcs. He tells Ramba to boost the drill instructor's attack speed and orders the explosive dragon mage to provide cover using her fire spells. At the same time, he commands the D-ranked Minikong to move straight toward the orc boss, completely ignoring the chaos happening in between. His focus is entirely on the boss because of the simple structure of the orc subjugation dungeon. As long as the giant orc at the back is taken down, victory is guaranteed and the battle will come to an end. Meanwhile, with Ramba's buff in effect, the drill instructor goes completely wild, cutting down orcs one after another like they are mere insects. Watching this, Jinwoo begins to wonder if this overwhelming strength is because of him being an X rank. A small smile forms on his face as it becomes clear that the battle might end before he even gets the chance to properly warm up. Even the soldiers who were struggling against the orcs just moments ago are left startled, seeing powerful allies appear out of nowhere and completely shift the tide of the fight. The Minikong leaps straight into the orcs while the Golden Fairy continues her healing without pause. Ramba, on the other hand, seems to be enjoying herself, provoking the monsters and making them throw their weapons at her. Seeing this, our boy immediately scolds her to stop messing around. Meanwhile, the explosive dragon mage unleashes her signature fire spell, toasting every orc that comes into contact with her flames. Before long, through their teamwork, the boss finally goes down, and a notification appears confirming that the dungeon has been successfully cleared. All of the summons get excited over their small victory, and the system rewards them with experience points, allowing them to level up. On top of that, Jinwoo hits the jackpot as he ends up receiving an intermediate summoning scroll along with 500,000 won. These rewards immediately push him to start looking for new dungeons right away, since not only did he manage to level up his summons, but he also earned some easy cash in the process. He begins planning to make it big overnight and finally stop being a broke loser. Meanwhile, back at the headquarters, Assemblyman Park is getting scolded by Jia for making such a reckless bet. Apparently, he let his anger get the better of him and is now facing the consequences. During his earlier meeting with Lim and the director, things escalated into an argument that nearly turned into a full fight. The director tried to step in and stop the clash between Assemblyman Lim and Park. Lim insists that he was only giving advice, but Park clearly has no interest in hearing something that sounds more like an insult than help. Kim then mocks him, calling him a loser since none of his talents have ever made it to the national team. That comment pushes Park over the edge, and the argument quickly intensifies. Though unfortunately for him, his rival actually has the skills to back up his words. Even then, Park refuses to let Lim look down on him like that. Sensing that Park is about to lose control, Lim proposes a bet to see whose talent can reach a higher rank, and Park immediately agrees without thinking it through. Lim then raises the stakes by adding that the loser will have to publicly admit that the other is better and also resign from their position. To make sure neither of them backs out, he further adds a penalty of 1 billion won. Instead of thinking things through, Park quickly agrees and even asks if they should draft a proper contract for the bet. As the story shifts back, Jia questions him, asking if he made such a reckless decision just because of Jinwoo. She admits that the boy is a genius, but still reminds him that at the end of the day he is just a gamer, and would likely fall short when compared to the currently registered rankers. The man, however, remains completely unfazed as he states that he fully believes in Jinwoo, and is confident that the boy will provide them with massive returns if they support him properly. Just then, an assistant suddenly rushes into the room. He loudly announces that he has identified the person responsible for solo clearing the D-rank dungeons, and reveals that it is none other than Baek Jinwoo. Hearing this, the assemblyman is left speechless with his mouth wide open, while Jia struggles to believe what she just heard. She argues that it has only been a month since the boy registered, and she cannot understand how he is already clearing dungeons in less than 5 minutes. The assemblyman immediately takes advantage of the situation, switching his tone as he starts bragging about his instincts, claiming that he always knew the boy was something special. The excitement on his face makes it obvious as he starts looking forward to winning the ridiculous bet he made with Lim. Back at home, our boy lies on his bed staring at his phone screen. He cannot help but giggle while looking at his bank balance. The poor guy has never seen this much money in one place before. After farming D-rank dungeons non-stop, he managed to stack up a solid 16 million. The intermediate scrolls turned out to be his biggest cash cow out of all the loot, earning him some seriously fat stacks. He drops to his knees and basks in the reward of all that hard work, convincing himself he might actually be the chosen one. That's pretty conceited considering his summons did most of the work. Anyway, he decides to divide the money into different accounts for separate purposes. First, he sets one aside for monthly expenses. Then he creates another to share part of his earnings with his family and make them proud. Lastly, and most importantly, he deals with his 10 million. The same amount that got his name into the headlines, into a savings account strictly for personal use. The rest of his balance goes into himself. While you can never have enough wealth, Jinwoo understands the importance of investing in his growth as a player. All of his summons are already above level 30. The next step in strengthening them is through powerful runes. It will not be easy, but grinding dungeons daily remains the most efficient method. Still, he wonders if buying a main summon from the black market might help speed up his farming. Suddenly his jaw drops when he sees how expensive C-rank summons are. A weak-looking thunderbat that looks like it was made in China still costs an eye-watering 20 million for real. That is not even the worst part. B-rank summons start in the hundreds of millions. As for A or S rank, there are none available at all. He sighs, understanding that B-rank summons are an incredibly rare find. Still, that does not discourage him much. He always knew a day would come when he would need outside assistance. Back at the assemblyman's office, the man's calm and composed demeanor completely shatters when he hears some thrilling news. Another request has arrived from the star player, Baek Jinwoo. The moment he hears the name, the man practically starts fangirling like a kid high on sugar. He eagerly asks what the request is about, seriously frightening the poor staff member delivering the message. The guy simply shows him the message, which turns out to be a neat little list of every summon Jinwoo would like to purchase. The total climbs past $1 billion like that is pocket change. The assemblyman's eyes nearly pop out of their sockets at the audacity. He lets out a dry laugh, wondering if our boy genuinely believes he can just arrange that kind of money overnight. If he had $1 billion lying around, he would not be stuck owning a single C-rank summon himself. However, his sarcasm fades when his subordinate adds one small detail. Jinwoo promised to reveal secret information about timed attacks in daily dungeons. Now that gets his full attention. He confirms if the player really means info for every single day of the week. It sounds far too generous, too suspiciously so. Still, he chooses to trust Jinwoo's word and says he will bring the proposal to his director. A few hours later, he is back in the office, banging his fist on his desk and looking like he will flip it any second. His team can tell the meeting did not go well. The director rejected the proposal outright, even though the opportunity could have pushed their company straight to the top of the industry. Watching him fume, Jia quietly thinks she wishes every manager had that much fire in them. When his subordinate asks what the director said, the assemblyman explains that the man wants solid proof of Jinwoo clearing dungeons first. Their demand is next-level brain rot considering the player kinda needs the money to buy summons that will clear those dungeons. Jia no Diaz, agreeing with the raging manager that missing this opportunity is a huge mistake. Seizing the chance, she calmly suggests that selling priceless daily dungeon intel for only $1 billion might actually be underselling it. Her lips curve into a confident smile as she offers a simple solution. She can just cover the payment herself. Hearing those words, Assemblyman Park remembers that Yujia is not just some regular employee with bold opinions. She is the heir to the Daesung conglomerate. She has received the finest education in the country. The young lady has collected awards and earned achievements for as long as she was alive. Unlike the rest of her family, though, she has always been more interested in players and dungeons than in sitting behind a desk managing assets. And right now, the player who fascinates her the most is Jinwoo, the rookie who went from a nobody to clearing dungeons like it is a side hobby. Now that he is offering an exclusive deal, this feels like the perfect opportunity to recruit him into her own agency before anyone else can. The assemblyman's current position comes with layers of annoying restrictions, but this arrangement would give him full freedom over future profits. No need to beg for approvals. Still, he hesitates and asks if she is truly comfortable betting such a massive sum on a player whose future is uncertain. The high-class lady responds with a cheeky smile, asking him if he is even aware of her current bank balance. She assures him that money will not be an issue. All she needs is a single meeting with the player. After that, she is confident she will have him firmly in her grasp. Later that evening, she sits alone by the window of a fine dining establishment. That is when her awaited client finally arrives, looking dapper as hell in a perfectly tailored two-piece suit. Jinwoo feels slightly surprised at how quickly the assemblyman agreed to the arrangement. From his perspective, all he did was request a formal meeting in exchange for a bit of secret information. It is his first time in such a fancy establishment, the kind that makes even five-star hotels look a little embarrassing. The line of waiters welcoming him at the entrance almost makes him feel like an actual boss. Just then, a graceful voice calls out to him, leaving him completely speechless. He is stunned to finally meet the lady he has only seen on his phone before. The Daesung Company heiress truly has everything someone could ask for. She is smart, beautiful, and backed by a powerful family. Honestly, name a trait and she probably has it. Never in his wildest dreams did he imagine that the genius constantly making headlines would be working with HQ. Curious why she is sitting alone, he asks if no one else will be joining them. She smiles softly and lets him know that she was the one who reached out to him, not Mr. Park. Soon exquisite cuisine is placed neatly in front of him. Jia delivers the unfortunate news that HQ cannot afford to provide the resources he requested. Mr. Park tried his absolute best to persuade his higher-ups, but he was met with rejection after rejection. Our boy remains completely chill, saying it is a shame they cannot help. He casually adds that he is confident he can climb to number 1 even without their support. However, she surprises him with a new proposal. Sliding a drink toward him, she reveals that she plans to found a management firm, one built specifically for him, and him alone. He almost chokes trying to process the generosity of the offer. In his eyes, it is an incredible deal. A company of his own would mean zero restrictions. They would be driven purely by profit, and making profit just happens to be his specialty. Still, that is not even his biggest motivation. This is also a golden chance to strike a deal with someone capable of buying his secret info at the highest possible bid. Jia adds that she, along with the entire Daesung group, will unconditionally support him with whatever he requires. Within seconds, he is completely disarmed by her confidence. He bluntly admits that it is really hard not to like her. She praises him in return, calling him a talent who deserves such treatment. She tells him they will discuss the finer details of his contract later. For now, she suggests he greet the summons he ordered. Jinwoo's jaw drops. She actually fulfilled his request before he even signed anything, almost as if she already knows he will not refuse. She flashes a smug little smile and tells him to think of it as a gift of appreciation. The next day in the mountains, his little sister searches for him at their usual spot. He has not contacted her for an entire week. On top of that, he suddenly moved out to his own place. She is really annoyed when a gorgeous woman walks past her, leaving her completely speechless. She does a double take, feeling like she has seen that face somewhere on social media. The rusty single-core processor in her brain grinds for a full second. Then it clicks. It is the national legend, Yu Jia, who seems to be looking for the same person. Somewhere nearby, our boy is breaking a sweat from intense morning drills. His summons look even worse, practically collapsing from exhaustion. Just then, they notice someone approaching. Jinwoo turns and spots Jia climbing up the stairs, clearly not dressed for cardio. He is genuinely surprised to see her there. She calmly says she is impressed to find him training this hard so early in the morning. Together with his summons, he actually looks like he has a proper party formation going on. Then she offers him yet another token of appreciation. A screen suddenly appears before him. It states that Yu Jia wishes to initiate a trade. A warning message pops up, advising him to carefully review the trade terms before accepting. The game's trading system exists to help players support one another. However, if anyone attempts to scam the other party, there are serious repercussions. The system literally strikes the offender with a lightning bolt as punishment. So yes, honesty is strongly encouraged. Right in front of his eyes, he sees Jia's entire collection of summons listed for transfer. In exchange, she requests absolutely nothing. He presses accept without hesitation. Just like that, her entire collection becomes his. Immediately after, he bows to her repeatedly. This gift is far beyond anything he thinks he deserves. She waves it off, saying it is not a big deal, and suggests they move on to the actual contract. She has already decided on the company name Yubak, a combination of their surnames. The profit distribution is just as generous. Jinwoo will receive 70%. She will take 25%, and the remaining 5% will go to Mr. Park. The poor man deserves a comfortable retirement someday. Of course, it is not charity. Park will continue supporting them from his position inside HQ. As for the paperwork, she has already arranged for an assistant to handle it. Jinwoo raises an eyebrow, pointing out that those assistants were employed by HQ. She casually informs him that they have already resigned. Apparently, offering triple their previous salary is a very effective motivational speech. Moving on, he wonders if she is really fine with giving him a full 70%. She calmly assures him she is not being generous. It is a calculated move that reflects her trust in his potential. What she does not say out loud is that money is not even her real goal. Her true agenda is to win Jinwoo completely over to her side. Without hesitation, our boy presses his thumbprint onto the contract. The deal is sealed, and the two of them shake hands on it. Just then, his summon notices something moving in the forest. In the blink of an eye, he disappears into the bushes. Violent screaming echoes through the trees shortly after. A moment later, he returns dragging two familiar faces, dangling from his grip like cuts of meat at the butcher's. Completely confused, he stares at his little sister Ajin and asks why the heck she was sneaking around in the bushes. Jinwoo pieces together her story and confirms that his sister had recognized Jia as a celebrity she admired, which led her to follow her without much thought. She quickly tries to reframe the situation and claims that she simply felt curious at the time. By then, Jia had already left the scene, so Jinwoo presses further and says that it still counts as stalking, then asks if she decided to watch them from a distance after she saw him with Jia. His sister falls completely silent after getting exposed like that, and after a brief pause she finally admits the truth without resistance. Right after that, she jumps toward him and demands to know how he even knows Jia and how he managed to meet someone like her in the first place. Jinwoo explains that his contract already includes a clause where he must introduce his family to Miss Jia, and she had planned to meet them formally anyway. His sister immediately starts to swoon over the thought of meeting her idol together with the family, but before Jinwoo can even add another word, she cuts him off once again without hesitation. So he starts to explain the situation and tells her that he used to be a well-known gamer, and he also held the record for clearing a low-rank dungeon faster than anyone else. Because of that, he often visited the headquarters and eventually met Jia there by chance. She asks him if it is the same game he used to play on his phone all the time back then. Jinwoo starts to panic at the risk of exposing his identity as Jinagod, so he quickly says that it was actually a different game and he only played BOS for about a year. His sister understands the hint and remarks that it still sounds impressive that he stuck with it for that long, even if the game itself was pretty trash. She then teases him and asks if all that time he wasted on games has finally started to pay off for once in his life. In Jinwoo's mind, he knows he can trust the family that has taken care of him for the past 3 years, but he still refuses to put them in danger. He stays cautious and decides that he will only reveal everything after he becomes strong enough to protect them without fail. Ajin points out that he kept this information hidden from her all this time, but Jinwoo replies that he always intended to tell her sooner or later. He asks her to keep it a secret for now until he personally reveals everything to their parents. Ajin struggles to believe what she just heard, but Jinwoo insists that he has valid reasons for keeping things private, so she eventually agrees despite her doubts. In the background, Ramba can no longer handle the weight of the dragon mage and finally collapses under the strain. At the same time, the drill instructor corners her shadow elf, which makes her anxious. Jinwoo quickly tells Ajin to pair her shadow elf with a shadow wolf and explains that without the wolf, her efficiency drops to less than 10% of its potential. She feels surprised after hearing that since the summon is completely new to her, and Jinwoo explains that it makes sense because the summon belongs to B rank. She wonders how she could possibly obtain a B rank summon as she searches through the online catalog for answers. In the next moment, she falls into despair when she shows him the price and asks how he expects her to afford something that costs 500 million. She sarcastically says that she will buy it in 20 years at this rate, but her brother calmly replies that he can get it for her within a month without much trouble. She bursts into laughter at that claim and mocks him for trying to act cool just because he has become somewhat known as a gamer recently. She tells him to forget about it and insists that she will save money little by little until she can afford it on her own later. He simply smiles as he stands up and tells her not to cry when he actually makes it happen, which leaves her even more confused than before. She begins to feel that her brother has changed into a completely different person lately, while her frightened elf quietly snuggles into her lap for comfort. About a week later, outside one of the weekday dungeons, Jinwoo meets up with the company team as planned. They hand him a set of new gear, which confuses him at first since he did not expect anything like that. Jia explains that for the Ubak company, information stands as their primary business asset above everything else. She tells him that they sell high-definition recordings of dungeon runs at premium prices, and the special gear exists to capture everything during the process. She continues by explaining that the equipment records the surroundings in full 3-dimensional detail while remaining lightweight enough to wear without discomfort. As soon as he puts it on, the assistant activates the system and begins recording everything around him like a set of prying eyes. Jinwoo feels that the situation seems more embarrassing than anything he has experienced before, and he mentions that he has never attempted a Monday dungeon, so the run might not look very clean. She reassures him that they will simply edit the best parts together afterward. He thanks her, and then casually asks if it would be fine for him to break the national record the moment he enters the dungeon. This completely startles the executive as she stares at him in disbelief before giving a hesitant approval. She wonders if he is joking, so she tells him to stay relaxed and perform naturally based on his instincts as a gamer instead. After entering, he recalls that the current Korean record for this dungeon sits at around 7 minutes, so he immediately concludes that it will be an easy task for him to surpass it. He remembers that this dungeon uniquely drops attack-related runes, which makes clear time directly linked to ranking performance. Just like in other games, attack runes play a crucial role in the BOS system, and without them, progress becomes almost impossible. In addition, the dungeon functions as a defense-type scenario where survival for 30 minutes guarantees a clear condition. However, completion time still matters, so if he manages to defeat the final boss known as the Lich, the dungeon ends instantly. Because of that, eliminating the boss has become the primary strategy used by top players aiming for fast clears. He checks his equipment and opens his interface, which displays options to organize 3 different teams for battle. Jinwoo has already prepared his teams in advance, so he quickly loads a preset configuration without wasting any time. For his first team, he summons the training instructor, the combat aide, and Mini Kong, while for the second team, he selects the Priest of Radiance along with the Golden Murmury. His status screen updates and shows that the Horde of the Lich has begun its approach, and he must hold out for 30 minutes under pressure. The timer begins immediately, and Mini Kong charges forward in a frenzy as it tears through the incoming skeleton creatures without restraint. Jinwoo then signals his summons to push forward and carve a path toward victory. As the Horde moves closer, he orders his summons to head toward higher ground without wasting any time. The training instructor Hungyo looks at him with surprise at first, but he follows the command since he realizes that everything is being recorded. Jinwoo estimates that it will take them at least 2 minutes to reach the higher position, and during that time he trusts that Mini Kong and Hungyo will handle the incoming mobs without fail. After they reach the designated spot, he instructs his combat aide to take position and prepare for the next phase. He recalls that in the game, the combat aide has long range and exceptional accuracy, which makes it useful in specific situations. However, in reality, its damage output remains extremely low, to the point where it cannot even defeat a standard monster after hours of continuous attacks. Even so, for this low-rank Monday dungeon, the aide becomes the perfect summon because the Lich has relatively low health overall. He tells the aide to hold fire until further notice, and then orders Radiance to cast Blessing on the battlefield. He notes that the purpose of this blessing is to remove the Lich's dark shield, which normally grants it immunity against long-range attacks. Once the shield effect disappears, he commands the combat aide to begin firing at the target without delay. While Mini Kong and Hungyo maintain control against the advancing horde, Radiance and Murmury provide support from above. The aide fires its shot, and as expected, the damage appears underwhelming compared to the other summons present. However, the important detail is that the Lich's health steadily decreases with each precise hit. After a few successful shots, the Lich starts to weaken, and Jinwoo notes that with normal runes the process would have taken far too long. That explains why most players choose not to bring the combat aide into this dungeon at all. At that moment, a skeleton leaps past Kong and rushes toward Jinwoo, but Hungyo intercepts and eliminates it instantly. Jinwoo then points out that he holds a major advantage because he can combine runes with Hungyo's abilities to unlock the combat aide's full potential. With that enhancement in place, even a top-tier Lich can fall from a single decisive strike. The next shot fires, and the Lich suddenly falters as its condition worsens rapidly before it collapses backward. The system screen updates and confirms that the monster has been defeated, and the dungeon clears in 4 minutes and 12 seconds. The entire squad exhales in relief, as the result screen reveals that they have broken Korea's all-time record and unlocked a special achievement. Meanwhile, Jia wonders if he truly intended to attempt a time attack on his very first run, and feels that it might be too early for such ambition. She quietly adds that it has only been a week since he obtained his requested summons, so they would have supported him regardless, even if he failed to break the record. The assistant grows anxious and asks if she truly believes that Jinwoo can break every single record without exception. He goes on to say that while breaking the Tuesday record is definitely impressive, they never actually discussed how he plans to clear the other dungeons ahead. He points out that Jinwoo is not the first player in Korea with a year of experience, and questions whether he has been completely honest with them from the start. Jia cuts him off and asks if he feels worried about the situation, which immediately softens his expression. She looks back at him and tells him not to stress about the investment since she used her personal funds for it anyway. She then adds that even in the worst-case scenario, she will make sure that their careers remain secure without any damage. On top of that, she reassures them that their salaries will not change at all, which causes both of them to tear up in relief. Gia reflects quietly and reminds herself that she has enough resources to manage any outcome that might arise from this decision. At the same time, she cannot shake off the feeling that Jinwoo hides something far bigger beneath the surface. The confidence he displayed before entering the dungeon made it clear that the challenge meant almost nothing to him from the very beginning. Just then, news arrives confirming that the record has officially been broken. The information reaches headquarters, where they realize that the low-rank Monday dungeon record has been shattered by an unbelievable margin of 3 minutes. They quickly look up the player responsible and discover that it is none other than Baek Jinwoo, which leaves them completely stunned. Back at the dungeon entrance, Gia's hands tremble as she starts to grasp the full weight of what just happened. In her mind, the business will at least perform decently at worst, but if everything goes right, it could turn into an overwhelming success beyond expectations. Back at the dungeon, our hero looks at the splendid view in front of him. Looking at the portal, he remembers that he has to do something else first. He then switches off the recording button and summons the system panel, telling himself that it is now time for some good old extreme sweaty grinding. Previously in the game, after a player clears a weekday dungeon, they can unlock a mode known as Auto Battle. As the name suggests, as long as your summons do the grinding for you, you can keep racking in those juicy rewards. Coming back to our boy, he sends the drill instructor back to his inventory, and instead summons Ramba. He tells her that she is now in charge of the slavery grinding session, which surprises her. Jinwoo explains that he isn't using Hungyo because he wants the guy to train others. Our boy teases her, asking if she would rather like to train too, which makes her freeze in place. The poor fairy immediately gets thrown into a flashback. The ruthless drill instructor worked her to the bone and made her go through extreme strength training. Recalling her traumatic past, she gets driven to tears and begs our boy to let her simply grind levels instead. With that settled, he then makes a plan to first clear all the weekday dungeons, and then rack up those profits using the auto battle system. This also has a double benefit since the summons grinding will also level up, making this process as efficient as a German car. With that, our boy takes his leave while the Wind Fairy happily sees him off, relieved that she won't be part of the torture routine anymore. As soon as he steps through the portal, he is greeted by an extraordinary scene. His team members have spread a red carpet to receive him, treating him as a celebrity. Trying not to think about it too much, he hands over the equipment and asks Gia if that will be all. She reassures him that they will do their best to ensure his identity doesn't leak anywhere. To her surprise, Jinwoo states that he doesn't care about that now. He instead looks her in the eye and tells her to do her best to protect his family. Korea's gangs are formidable and dangerous. However, since Yubek is only concerned with him, they can protect him more properly. Gia stays silent for a few seconds and then agrees, promising to use all her assets to make that happen. Sometime later, our hero returns to his first dungeon and uses his spotted lizard summon to set yet another new record of nearly 3 minutes. He managed the run so it looks good on the screen, but actually, he is good enough to make it to the world rankings. Using speed runes on the lizard, along with speed buffs from the Wind Falcon, the record is like stealing candy from a baby. Jinwoo then turns off the recordings and heads back to the real world. The next day, he goes to the Wednesday dungeon, which is an icy wasteland. That dungeon is known for its unique feature, the movement debuff, which forces you to move ahead as slow as a snail. Shaking like a cocaine user during withdrawal, he summons his frost cat, Wind Falcon, alongside a titanium golem, Horn Fairy, and the explosion dragon mage. All his summons then use their cold debuff abilities, finally making the temperature tolerable. Jinwoo then focuses on the battlefield, only to see white hairy gorillas barreling toward them. He orders the titanium golem to move ahead and activate its shield. The Wind Falcon then activates its speed boost on all of them. All of them hitch a ride on their titanium golem Uber and rush ahead. As they make their way forward, our boy barely holds his barf in, not accounting for how rough the ride would be. The snow gorillas launch their snowball attacks, but the golem just tanks all of it with zero effort. Not just that, the metal golem then simply jumps up as if gravity doesn't exist and starts scaling the side of the mountain. Jinwoo then tells the dragon mage girl to get ready, which makes her focus on what's ahead. As soon as the party clears the ledge, a system warning flashes that the dungeon boss is ahead. The Gorilla Boss Pro Max lets out a monstrous roar, but our hero doesn't falter and instead shouts orders at the Horn Fairy. The fairy flies ahead and uses her skill, which destroys the shield protecting the dungeon boss. He then signals the dragon mage, who releases a devastating flame dragon spell that swallows the boss whole. With that, the dungeon gets completed with a clearance time of less than 5 minutes. Jinwoo gets excited over another new record, but then doubles over and empties his gut due to motion sickness. From that point on, headlines start popping up everywhere about a young no-ranker breaking national records all over Korea. People slowly begin to realize that this is the same guy who cleared the Tuesday dungeon, and with that, his popularity skyrockets. Gossip about him starts to increase as he becomes the talk of the town. Seeing headline after headline, the headquarters director gets annoyed. The secretary tells him that it's the same guy that Assemblyman Park mentioned. The deal was that our boy would sell them information in exchange for low-rank summons. However, Assemblyman Lim opposed the idea, demanding that the funds not be released without getting the info first. The director closes his eyes, realizing that the info was real all along. Taking a deep breath, he tells himself that Assemblyman Lim did have a valid point. However, the main thing in politics is the result you show. If they had simply favored Jinwoo back then, their fame and influence would have skyrocketed by now. Like a true corporate boss, he shakes his head. He puts all the blame on Lim, saying that he just shut the door on the opportunity of a lifetime. The director then tells the first secretary to reach out to Jinwoo directly. Since he didn't turn out to be a Nigerian prince scammer, they must absolutely get him back no matter what. Dropping into lore mode, Monday and Wednesday dungeons give runes, while the Tuesday dungeons hand out abrasives. However, the Thursday dungeons instead give skill books. Even though they do not give broken tier skills, or even those skills that the drill instructor cannot unlock, they still provide some useful abilities. Because of this, our boy doesn't have to clear the Sunday dungeons, since the rewards are the same, but the difficulty is much higher. That is why the entire gang decided to take well-deserved breaks on Sundays. What actually happens in Thursday dungeons is that as soon as you enter, you are immediately thrown into a boss fight. In this particular dungeon, the Dirt Golem boss's defense is higher than your local crackman. What normal players do is summon white wolves, which have a defense-decreasing ability. But that is not how the greatest player plays, as you can simply overpower it with brute force and extreme damage. Jinwoo switches the camera off since this isn't exactly the kind of video that would perform well. Since no one has X-grade summons to prepare Dirt Golem stakes, this is basically like telling everyone to go install hacks to beat the game. Our boy makes up his mind that he will instead tell everyone to lower the boss's defenses with the white wolves and then use extreme damage dealers. Climbing on top of his titanium golem, he recalls that the weak point of the Dirt Golem is its head. That is why he is using his own golem to level the playing field. As his summons prepare for battle, he commands them to aim for the head, which would have made Thor proud. The two giants duke it out in a fistfight, while the drill instructor uses a Heian-era 3,000-year-old technique to instantly chop up the Dirt Golem. Meanwhile, the Dragon Mage girl floats high into the sky and summons her broken fire dragon spell again, reducing the Dirt Golem to a corpse. The system then announces that the dungeon is now complete, with a clear time of a little over 5 minutes. Watching the drill instructor, our hero realizes that his abilities are absolutely broken, and he got banned for a reason. However, he doesn't intend to abuse the drill instructor since with a well-trained dragon mage, our boy can easily clear the highest grade dungeons in a second. He then gets into the details, wondering if he includes the entry and everything. It would take around 10 seconds. Waving to the drill instructor, he yells out that there is still time left for one more dungeon. Finally, when he returns to the real world, two guys in business suits approach him and ask if he is Jinwoo. They then extend a business card, saying that they are from headquarters. Our hero takes the card half-heartedly, and then asks what headquarters wants from him now. The black-haired NPC forces a smile and states that they reviewed the proposal he sent them last time. He continues that the deal seems doable, but before he can give his sales pitch, Jinwoo raises his hand and cuts him off. With a smile, he tells them not to bother with that anymore. Both of them are caught off guard by the sudden rejection. Our boy just smiles, recalling how trusting and generous Gia is with him compared to the greedy, strict headquarters. The director is completely the opposite of Gia. He then reveals that he is already a part of a company, so if they wish to talk, they can talk to Gia through the Ubaek agency. With that, he takes his leave while the two guys are left more confused than ever. The brown-haired guy guesses that it is the same Gia from the Daesung group, but the black-haired guy decides it is better to go back for now and research the matter first. However, on the inside, he feels like they just missed out on a major gold mine. Coming back to our hero, who is standing on a large rooftop, he looks at the area and tells himself that this place will do. Dropping into lore mode, the Friday dungeon is different from the rest of them. Instead of the summons fighting, this place requires the summoner to run through the area and clear it. That is why he decided to start practicing now. Jinwoo summons a sky wyvern, a massive blue dragon-like creature. Looking below the railing, he gets overwhelmed even though he has the shield in place. He then calls to his wyvern, Sky, and asks if it is ready for the training. With that, he climbs on, and the two take off into the sky. Our hero initially keeps his eyes shut tightly due to fear, but then he slowly opens them to see that this is much more fun than he initially thought it would be. Finally getting a confidence boost, he tells Sky to go faster. Sometime later, off the coast of the city, he arrives at an unmarked island. Over there, he summons the dragon mage and the drill instructor. The guy immediately starts singing praises about how fast Jinwoo went, but he plays it off as if it wasn't anything special. The dragon mage then speaks up, mentioning what a total nightmare it was when they first learned how to ride wyverns. That makes him remember that the two of them rode both wyverns and dolphins before. When she praises him again, Jinwoo blushes and thanks her. which makes the drill instructor depressed due to the clear gender discrimination. Our hero then stares at the sea and announces that it is now time to practice riding dolphins. He hypes the two up, saying that learning from pros like them will be the fastest way, so he is counting on them. A few days later, it is finally time for the Friday dungeon. This dungeon is also unique in the sense that it can grant top-tier runes. Starting off, our hero summons his Wind Falcon and commands it to give him a speed buff. He then takes his starting position and waits for the countdown. As soon as the signal is given, he immediately breaks into a run, dodging the projectiles launched his way. Jinwoo is unstoppable as he dashes past the obstacles and decides that it's time to take the secret pathway. Turning toward the ocean, he recalls that normally you are supposed to cross the water and keep on running. However, instead, he jumps into the ocean and summons his sky dolphin. Grabbing onto its fin, he takes a deep breath and dives deep into the water. Basically, if he uses the sky dolphin to dive, he can avoid all the obstacles on top. After crossing to the other side, the dolphin jumps into the air, and Jinwoo then summons Sky. The wyvern appears below them, and our boy jumps on, landing on the back of it like a pro-aura farmer. He then proceeds to fly over the rest of the obstacles, putting all the creator's work to shame. The rest of the course is a breeze as he simply flies through the finish line. Our hero starts celebrating as the system informs him that the dungeon has been completed. Jinwoo managed to clear this dungeon in just over 2 minutes, breaking the South Korean record by a mile. For that, he also receives a special reward. Finishing off with a peace sign, the two then fly off into the sky like it is their happily ever after.